Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to British pet culture has got nothing on American pet culture. Now, this one should be interesting because my exposure, the only pets I've ever had in my life are fish. Like we have at our family home, we've got a fish pond. So it's not like having a cat or a dog where, you can hug them and stuff like that. But people here love their pets. They love their pets, man. Honestly, some dogs that I see get treated a lot better than humans. They get to go on spa days, literally spa retreats. They get like a groom, a haircut like every week. It's just mad. But I imagine it's probably the same in America too. Maybe even more sort of like devotion and love in certain states like California. I remember seeing a TV show in California about this sort of like week-long pet retreat that people were sending their dogs and cats to. So yeah, this video is by Lost in the Pond. He does great videos on this kind of stuff, so I know it's going to be fun. Let's do it.
In times like this, it's time to restore the initial reasons for which the internet was created, cats. And although ironically this one has absolutely no idea what the internet is, you're clueless, aren't you? What's a JPEG?
That is a
What's
gorgeous
a
cat,
key?
man.
Yeah. What's a content management system? What is
I love that
Instagram?
grey
Who
fur.
are all these people? Yeah, you're not very smart. It's true.
Very moody though. That
You've been
face.
self-isolating your whole life. Yeah. Well, you've also been running off with all of the toilet roll. So you're part of the problem, aren't you?
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond. And one of those memos pertains to something that's very dear to my heart, and I dare say the hearts of other people watching just looking at these stats, and that's pets. The animals, the little fur balls that a lot of us live with, and in my wife's case that's both a cat and me, fur balls being an affectionate term for a cat in this case. But having lived in America now for all of this time, something has become abundantly clear, and that is that America absolutely kicks Britain's arse when it comes to pet culture. Actually, I had experience of this firsthand when I first moved to the United States, because Tara's family had, 9 dogs, and one of those, a chocolate Labrador, marauded me as soon as I walked in the door. "Welcome to America," she said in her own variety of English that wasn't English. And you just get a general sense here, no matter where you live, that people just take their dogs for a walk more often. Not right now, we're on lockdown, but in normal springtime weather, that is the case. I say springtime weather, it is about to turn spring officially, and I had this video lined up for a long time, thinking that, it would sort of mirror everybody's outdoor activities, and here we are, quarantined like the day we were born.
So
I was born in a lab. But I figured since a lot of us are quarantined right now, that this might actually have some deeper resonance that I wasn't even anticipating, and that you'll look at the screen and go, oh, and that's just at my face. And what I was saying a moment ago is absolutely true. The stats bear me out on this. And before you stop me and say, oh, well, it's because America has bigger houses, therefore it can have more pets per houses. Well, no, just households alone, 67% of households have at least one pet, right?
67.
Compared to the United Kingdom, where it's 45%. So that's a big jump.
It is,
and it sort of mirrors my own experience, I think, of living in the United States and living with animals. And so I thought it would be fun to drill down a little bit deeper.
But I do think that the space thing is a big thing. Houses here are a lot smaller. If you live in a 2-bedroom flat here and you've got 2 kids, there's no space for a dog or a cat, really.
And just look at it by animal type and see where America is kicking Britain's arse. Now, our first entry might literally be lost in the pond, and it's also an exception that proves the rule.
Fish.
Yes, fish. I think in my entire life I've never actually lived with fish, and if I did, I've forgotten it, and they forgot it after 3 seconds. But apparently a lot of people in the United Kingdom do, if the statistics are anything to go by.
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, in the United Kingdom there are 67 million people, and that equates apparently to 27.6 million households. And I can report that there are almost twice as many fish as that. In fact, there is 1 fish for every 0.6 households. That sounds crazy, but when you think about it, a lot of tanks have about 27,000 fish in them. That's a lot. You'd have to spend a lot of money for that. So over-exaggerating, but
We've got like maybe 30 or 40 fish in our pond, something like that.
Tanks don't usually just have the 1 fish, otherwise he or she would become quite bored, and then subsequently forget their boredom and then become excited again, and then bored and excited every 3 seconds. Is it true about goldfish 3-second memories? I might be making that up.
It's been disproved. It's been disproved.
Either way, that's the only UK entry on this list that beats the United States of America. Don't believe me? Let's do the maths. So in the United States, there are 328 million people spread across 128 million households. Once again, that number is bested by the number of pet fish that live in the United States, but not quite to the extent that we see in the UK. In fact, there is one fish for every 0.8 households. And I've just realised that sounds like one fish taking up 4/5 of a house. That's not what these averages mean. There's a lot of fish, is what I'm saying. And now, from the sea to the land, let's take a look at all of our next entries, each of which are more prominent. What are you doing up here? You get down. Each of which are more prominent in North America. Nay, the United States. I said nay on purpose there. You'll see.
Horses.
What? I can't see my stats. You're in the way. I'm going to have to wing this now, which will be appropriate when we get to birds, but not yet. All right, can I go on? We're supposed to be talking about horses. Yeah, we'll get to you at the end. It's always about
now he's mooning us.
Oh, look, he's got a tale to tell. Okay, I'll just go on. So horses have tails. That's a tie-in, I suppose. So horses are surprisingly common in the United States. I say surprisingly, but I think when I think of horses, I just think of Jane Austen novels and the old times, Henry VIII and all of that. So I always just think that, we are the country of the horse. Not so. Apparently the United States has a lot of them. I was kind of surprised by these numbers. So the United States, you have one horse, or pony, I should say, because it falls into the sort of equine family of horses. You have one of those for every 16.8 households. That sounds like a lot to me.
It is
but these are the numbers prepared by my graphics team, a team that consists of my cat.
How much is a horse? Like, surely buying a horse, you're looking at 10 grand, right? Something like that. Not cheap. And you need a lot of land for the horse to run around on. So I think that's another reason why you guys have us beat there. Just the space, a lot of you guys have ranches and stuff.
Can't be right. What is this? The Wild West? That sounds like a lot of horses. But I suppose when you think about it, that people that keep horses keep multiple horses, I assume. And I suppose also, this was pointed out to me earlier on by the wife, not the cat. He doesn't speak. Is that the United States has a lot of land, so therefore it has a lot of places for horses to roam free.
Yeah.
I wouldn't keep one in here because it would take up 4/5 of my house. But in Jane Austen land in the United Kingdom, horses not quite so popular. I certainly didn't grow up with a horse. I didn't know anybody that did. I did actually. I dated somebody who did, and that it ended very quickly. So in the United Kingdom, there's one horse or pony for every 138 households. That does sound more expected to me. And I did encounter horses in my youth, I should remember. At my aunt's farm, I was almost kicked by one at one point, and that's put me off riding one ever since. And also I'm scared of heights. They're tall buggers, aren't they? Something that isn't tall and doesn't always have 4 legs is our next entry.
In the UK, there's kind of like a thing where people who own horses tend to be a bit crazy. Like, they tend to be a bit crazy. Like, do you guys agree with that or disagree with that? Do you have any experience of that? The crazy horse person? Like, let me know in the comments.
Oh, the first time I saw a 4-legged reptile was in Orlando, but the problem was I was 8 years old and I thought it was a toy. And to this day, I'd love to cohabit with one, say a lizard, but I think my cat would eat its head off, and for the same reason. And this one isn't surprising because it's not just Florida where you might see reptiles just roaming the streets with your own eyes. To be clear, I'm not suggesting they steal your eyes. He's back. I mean, you might see an iguana or a snake. Speaking of, can you get yours out of the way, please? And so the United States, just in the wild, seems to be more replete with reptiles, but the same is true of households by quite some distance. If you were doing the mathematics earlier on, you'll have noticed that there are about 5 times as many households in the United States as there are in the UK. But there are about 10 times as many... He's back again. He won't stop, so I'm just going to keep going. There are about 10 times as many pet reptiles. His arse is in my face. It's so off-putting. Anyway, so in American households, there's one reptile for every 13.6 households. That sounds high. I just don't remember encountering any reptiles in any of the houses that I visited in the US in my time living here. Are people just hiding them? Is that what happens? Do they think I'm going to be allergic because I'm from England? In the UK, this is different. It's one reptile for every 30.66 households. That's quite specific. That also sounds high. I don't remember encountering reptiles when I lived in the UK. Actually, no, my next door neighbour once had terrapins. He's biting me. He's biting my hand. Terrapins must be reptiles, right? It's hard to research these things as they come to you on the fly. No, on the fly.
What do you feed iguanas? Like, is it insects? Like, And do you have to catch them, or you must be able to buy them in bulk, like a pot of flies or something like that? They are cool to look at, to be fair. The colour on them, yeah, they are pretty cool.
Fly is a saying. We're not doing birds just yet. Don't worry, you'll still be interested in our next entry, I promise. Because our next entry is this.
Cats.
Fluff balls, I use that word on purpose to describe what are actually small animals, but small animals wouldn't fit in the graphic, so I just made up a term, and now I think it sounds rude. But from what I can gather, the category of small animals or fluff balls are things
cats.
like gerbils or rabbits
gotcha.
or mice, those little animals that can get sucked up by a vacuum cleaner. I've never tried that on rabbits, or any of them. In the UK, there's apparently one small animal, or fluff ball, I want that trademark, by the way, for every 17.25 households. Now again, that might sound like quite a lot, but it's got nothing on the United States. You love your little furry animals here, and that's not a euphemism. In the United States, there is one small fluff ball for every 9.4 households. Whoa. Now again, kind of like the reptiles, I don't tend to see these very often when I go to houses. Is it just where I live, or are they just being hidden for experiments? Do they smell my cat? I certainly have today. One thing I know for sure is that he would absolutely devour your small rodent, and the same is true of our next entry.
Birds.
Here's a personal story. My grandma used to have a couple of birds, and they do this thing where they mimic her voice right down to all of the swear words. And sure enough, my grandma isn't alone. The UK has one bird for every 135 people. That's one bird for every 55.2 households. But that ain't got nothing on America, the land of the bald eagle, which nobody keeps those in cages, just so we're clear, right? Nonetheless, bird cohabitation in the United States is surprisingly widespread. There's a pet bird population here of 20.3 million birds. That's one bird for every 6.3 households.
That's actually
Bear in mind
lot.
that this data could be skewed by some households having multiple birds.
Yeah.
One of several things that birds have in common with toilet paper. Then again, PetSmart does have a lot of birds, so there's clearly a demand. You don't see many horses there, but you do see plenty of other four-legged animals.
The thing with having a pet bird is that I imagine you're going to keep it in a cage a lot, so it's not able to like fly and stuff, which is what it might do, you know, if it was just out there living in its natural habitat. Like, or do you have anyone who's watching this that has a pet bird? Do you let it fly for a certain period of time every day? Like, what is the sort of like routine for keeping a pet bird?
Animals, including our final two entries. I absolutely love dogs, and if I'm being honest, I love them more than cats. He's not around at the minute. They're just amazing. Like when they're chasing their own tail. That's how I feel when I'm trying to record with a cat on the table. And the way chocolate Labradors wrestle you to the ground and lick your face off, it was adorable, because she didn't know any better. Dogs are simply the greatest thing probably ever, if I'm honest. And both the UK and America agree. In the UK, there are 9 million pet dogs. That's one dog for every 7.5 people, or one dog for every 3 households. But the United States has that beaten. And that's because every family that has at least 2 children also has 70 dogs. And so in the United States, you have one dog for every 3.6 people, one dog for every 1.42.
So almost every house has a dog on average. That's insane.
Households. They are a huge part of the family makeup here, and they come in various sizes too. So you'll have the Labrador, but you'll also have the tiny poodle that people walk down the trendy areas of Chicago. And this happens in droves. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in the United Kingdom. You will see it, of course you will. Dog parks specifically set up in both countries for these very animals. However, it's not so easy to take our final entry for a walk, as evidenced by his antics today.
So cats are more popular than dogs?
And much like dogs,
Really?
there are more American household cats than there are British people. They're everywhere, and in both countries you will see them cohabiting with dogs. I use the term cohabiting loosely. They hide out of the way, or just attack the out of the dog. I don't know who to feel sorry for most, but I do know since moving to the United States, I've mostly lived with cats. And, you know, I joke about how this one's a little menace, but, I mean, he is. There isn't one thing he can't get into trouble for, and that includes murder. In fact, despite all of his interference, he's been moderately well behaved for him, so I have to give him props for that. And he, of course, is not alone in being a domesticated cat in this country. Again, I use the term domesticated loosely. Because in the United States of America, there is one cat for every 1.3 households. That's near.
Why are cats so popular? I mean, yeah, they do look, a lot of them look amazing, you know, they're gorgeous, but I don't think they're as affectionate as dogs. I would have thought having a dog would be way more popular than having a cat. Like, what do you guys think is the reason for cats' popularity?
Nearly one for every house. And what that means is that there's an estimated 94 million cats roaming. They're not roaming the streets. That's what they do in England.
94
we have a lot of
million.
outdoor cats in England, which might explain the lower numbers. Because in the United Kingdom, we have 7.5. And it wasn't curiosity that killed the cat. It was a Ford Escort. Cats are all the rage in the United States, even more so than dogs, though you
That's
wouldn't
so
believe
wrong.
it, seeing the amount of dogs being walked on the streets. It's just that cats don't take well to being put on a leash. I've tried, believe me. He actually chewed through the leash and ran back in the house and hid in a cupboard. That's it for this episode. Thank you for joining me.
Fun video. I would never have guessed. I knew that dogs and cats were very, very popular, but to think that on average, almost every household has a cat or a dog, it's just insane, because it puts into perspective, there are literally millions of them, tens of millions of them in both countries. I guess if you added them both together, there's hundreds of millions of them just in the UK and the US alone. Really, really interesting stuff. Like, how much does their upkeep cost you, would you say, on average per year? Like, because you got pet insurance, you've got food, you've got grooming. What else? I'm sure I'm forgetting some things, like the tracking them. Like, how much does it cost to keep a cat versus a dog? And I know it will depend on the size of the dog and things like that, but on average, let me know, guys. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.